The Galactic Concord did not laugh often. It was an ancient alliance of thousands of species, forged across millions of years. Wars had been fought, civilizations erased, stars burned out and were forgotten. Laughter was rare in the high chamber of worlds. But when the name Earth appeared on the central hollow sphere, laughter echoed like thunder. A small blue planet spun slowly above the marble floor. Its data feed blinked with primitive readings: chemical rockets, radio noise, internal conflicts, atmospheric pollution. A divided species, hissed Counselor Vraka of the Teln, his chitin plates shifting in mild amusement. They still argue over borders on a single world. They have not achieved unified governance, added Seer-Mind Ilix, a floating being of light and thought. Probability of galactic relevance, negligible. From 100 alien throats came dismissive sounds, clicks, hums, ripples of mocking color. Humans had applied for observer status. Not membership. Not alliance. Just the right to watch. The request was denied in less than 3 seconds. Let them mature for another 1,000 years, the Concord ruled. Or let them destroy themselves. Statistically likely. And so the galaxy looked away. On Earth no one heard the laughter. Humanity was too busy surviving itself. Wars flared and died. Empires rose and fell. Then something strange happened, slow, quiet, and unnoticed by the stars. Humans learned. Not faster than others. Not stronger. Not wiser. Just relentlessly. When resources ran low, humans adapted. When systems failed, humans rebuilt them better. When enemies appeared, humans studied them, then changed. They did not wait for perfection. They iterated. By the time the first human deep space vessels reached the edge of their solar system, the galaxy had already forgotten Earth existed. The forgetting ended in fire. A mining convoy from the Krell Dominion entered Sol space by accident. Their charts were old. Their sensors lazy. They expected empty stars. Instead, they found automated defense satellites, crude by galactic standards but numerous. The Krell laughed. Until 3 ships vanished in silent explosions. Human weapons were not elegant. They were not efficient. They were unpredictable. Rail slugs changed trajectory mid-flight. Electronic warfare screamed chaos into Krell systems. Human AIs behaved, strangely, creative, almost reckless. The remaining Krell ships fled. And for the first time in centuries, a report reached the Concord marked unexpected loss. The high chamber reconvened. A fluke, Vraka said. Primitive luck. Or emergent danger, Ilix countered. Their technology curve is irregular, chaotic, non-linear. Send a probe fleet, the Concord decided. Observe. Contain if necessary. They did not send an army. That was mistake number 1. Humanity noticed the probes immediately. They did not panic. They argued. Scientists debated. Military leaders warned. Politicians delayed. Then a quiet woman with tired eyes spoke in a closed council on Luna. Admiral Elena Ward did not shout. She simply said, "They're watching us the way hunters watch prey." Silence followed. "We don't show them our teeth," she continued. "We show them our mind." Operation Mirrorfall began. Humans let the probes scan outdated shipyards. Fake power readings. Decoy signals. They fed the galaxy a carefully crafted lie. We are weak. We are divided. We are afraid. The Concord believed it. Then the Scarth Swarm came. An extragalactic force. Devourers of biospheres. Unstoppable. Ancient. They did not negotiate. They did not warn. They erased 3 major Concord species in weeks. Fleets shattered. Shields failed. Superweapons did nothing. The high chamber fell into chaos. And suddenly an old data file resurfaced. Sol system. Unclassified. A species that adapted too fast. A species that fought dirty. A species that lied convincingly. Ilix spoke with rare uncertainty. Statistical models indicate humans may survive contact. Vraka recoiled. They are children. Yes, Ilix replied softly. And children learn quickly when the house is on fire. For the first time in galactic history, the Concord did the unthinkable. They sent a distress signal. To Earth. On Luna, Admiral Ward watched the incoming transmission. She smiled. "About time," she said. "Now, we decide whether the galaxy deserves saving." The distress signal reached Earth wrapped in fear. It was not words alone, but emotion encoded into light, panic compressed into data. Entire civilizations screaming through static. Star systems going dark one by one. Human translators worked for hours in silence. When the message was finally decoded, the room felt smaller. Extinction event in progress. Request, military intervention. From, the Galactic Concord. The same Concord that had laughed. On Luna, representatives from Earth's fractured nations gathered under one dome. Old rivals sat side by side, eyes hollow, breaths tight. Screens showed the horror. World stripped bare. Orbital rings shattered like glass. Alien fleets dying without ever understanding how. The enemy called itself the Scarith Swarm, a hive intelligence older than many stars. It adapted faster than any known species. Every tactic used against it worked once. Only once. A general broke the silence. "They're asking us to fight that?" A scientist whispered. "We barely survived ourselves." Admiral Elena Ward stood at the center. She had read every report. Watched every planet die. "They didn't come to us because we're strong," she said. "They came because we're different." A delegate scoffed bitterly. "We're not even unified." Ward nodded. "No. But we're experienced." She tapped the table. A new image appeared. Human history. Endless wars. Revolutions. Collapses. Rebuilds. "We are the only species in recorded galactic data that evolved under constant internal conflict," she said. "We trained for war by fighting ourselves." Silence. "We learn logistics through disaster relief. Strategy through desperation. Innovation through failure." She looked around the room. The galaxy optimized for peace. We optimized for survival. The Concord delegation arrived 3 days later. Their ship hovered above Earth like a living cathedral of light. Its arrival shut down satellites and turned night into artificial dawn. Alien envoys descended, beings of crystal, mist, metal, and flesh unlike anything humanity had imagined. They expected awe. They received guarded stares and raised weapons. Vraka of the Teln addressed the chamber, his voice clicking with restrained arrogance. "Humanity of Earth," he said. "Your species has exceeded expectations." Ward smiled thinly. "That's one way to say we were wrong." Vraka ignored the tone. "We request your fleets, your soldiers, your ingenuity." A murmur rippled through the human delegates. Ward stepped closer. "You denied us observer status," she said calmly. "You dismissed us as irrelevant." "Yes," Vraka admitted. "But the swarm is your problem," Ward cut in. The alien recoiled. Gasps echoed. Ward's voice hardened. "We didn't come to the stars to die for those who mocked us." For a moment, it seemed the talks would collapse. Then Ilix floated forward, light dimmed in humility. "We were arrogant," the seer mind said. "We measured you by stability, not potential. Help us, and the galaxy will never underestimate Earth again." Ward studied the being. "Full access," she said finally. "All your data. All your mistakes. No lies." Ilix pulsed. "Agreed." That was mistake number 2. Human analysts devoured Concord archives like starving wolves. They didn't just read battle reports. They questioned assumptions. Why did fleets fight in neat formations? Why were supply lines predictable? Why did no one sacrifice a system to save 10? A young tactician said it aloud. "They fight like they're afraid to lose." Humans weren't. The first joint battle took place at Caro's Reach, a dead system littered with wreckage. The Concord fleets formed their traditional lines. Human ships did not. They scattered. Alien commanders panicked. "You're breaking formation," Vraka shouted across comms. Ward's voice came back calm. "No," she said. "We're baiting." The Scarith arrived like a living storm. They surged toward the scattered human vessels. Then space changed. Human ships detonated, not in explosions but gravitational collapses. Miniature singularities tore swarm vessels apart. Mines activated late. Drones swarmed backward. False retreats turned into ambushes. Human captains sacrificed ships without hesitation. Alien commanders screamed in horror. "You're losing vessels." "Yes," Ward replied. "To win the war." The swarm adapted within minutes. So did humans. When energy weapons failed, humans switched to kinetics. When kinetics failed, they used radiation. When radiation failed, they hacked biology itself. Human weapons didn't seek perfection. They sought variety. The swarm hesitated. For the first time in its ancient existence, it faced an enemy that changed faster than it could learn. Caro's Reach burned. When the battle ended, half the human fleet was gone. But the swarm retreated. The Concord stared in stunned silence. Ilix whispered, "They didn't fight to survive the battle." Ward watched the wreckage drift. "They fought to teach the enemy fear." Across the galaxy, sensors lit up. The swarm altered course. Toward Earth. Vraka trembled. They're coming for your home. Ward's smile returned, cold, sharp, unafraid. Good, she said. Now they'll fight us where we evolved. The Scarith swarm did not feel anger. It felt correction. For millions of years, it had consumed galaxies by refining its approach. Every enemy followed patterns. Every civilization believed itself unique. Earth was marked as an anomaly, so the swarm adjusted its vector, not to conquer territory but to erase the variable. Sol burned with warning lights as long-range sensors screamed. The swarm was coming. Not a raiding force. Not a probing arm. A purge wave. On Earth, panic spread faster than the news could travel. Cities emptied. Underground shelters filled. Old hatreds resurfaced, then vanished under something stronger. Fear. And resolve. For the first time in human history, no nation argued about jurisdiction. They argued about how fast they could help. Admiral Elena Ward stood before a tactical map of the solar system. Red icons poured inward like blood through veins. They outnumber us 10-1, a commander said. Ward nodded. Good. The room blinked. She turned. They think we'll defend Earth like a capital world, she said. Shields up. Fleets in orbit. A last stand. She shook her head. Earth isn't a throne, Ward continued. It's a forge. She tapped the map. We don't defend the planet, she said. We turn the system into a weapon. The Concord watched in growing horror as humans dismantled their own solar system. Mining colonies were evacuated, then rigged to explode. Gas giants were seeded with fusion triggers. Asteroid belts were weaponized into autonomous kill clouds. Alien observers protested. You're destroying priceless infrastructure. Ward didn't look up. We can rebuild, she said. Can you? They had no answer. The swarm arrived at the edge of Sol like a black tide. Millions of bioships, each one alive, each one adapting in real time. The Concord fleets formed defensive lines near Earth. Human fleets were nowhere to be seen. The swarm surged forward. And the sun flared. Human engineers had done the unthinkable. They destabilized controlled solar eruptions, turning the star itself into a directional weapon. Radiation lanced through swarm formations, frying neural clusters by the billions. The swarm recoiled. Then it adapted. Shields grew. Hulls darkened. It pressed on. That was when the asteroids came. Not hurled. Released. Entire swarms of rocks accelerated by hidden mass drivers, moving at relativistic speeds. They did not explode. They punched. Swarm vessels ruptured, torn apart faster than regeneration could keep up. Still, the swarm advanced. It always advanced. Then the humans appeared. Human ships dropped out of nowhere, thousands of them, small, ugly, mismatched. They didn't form lines. They swarmed like insects. Human captains spoke calmly over open comms. Fire everything. Then change everything. Then do it again. Weapons cycled unpredictably. Frequencies shifted mid-shot. AI pilots deliberately behaved erratically, making impossible maneuvers that no Concord species would allow their machines to attempt. Ships died. Human ships died constantly. But every loss taught the rest something new. The swarm adapted. Humans adapted faster. On the surface of Earth, civilians watched the sky burn. Children saw auroras made of weapons fire. Oceans glowed. The moon shook as hidden cannons fired through its crust. A Concord diplomat whispered in terror, "You live like this?" A human engineer beside him didn't look away. "No," she said softly. "We train like this." Then the swarm did something unexpected. It spoke. A signal tore through human networks, bypassing firewalls, translating itself into language. "You are chaos. Chaos must be removed." Admiral Ward responded personally. "You came to the wrong system," she said. "We invented chaos." The swarm launched its final adaptation. It targeted Earth itself. Bioships detached, diving toward the atmosphere, ready to seed extinction organisms across continents. Ward watched the trajectories. "Now," she said. The planet answered. Hidden across Earth were weapons never shared with the Concord. Not out of secrecy, but because no one had ever asked the right questions. Humanity activated the planetary reflex grid. Earth's magnetic field surged. The atmosphere ionized. The sky became a shield. Swarm bioships burned on entry, shredded by electromagnetic storms tuned precisely to their biology. Those that survived impact met armies already waiting. Humans did not scream. They fought. City by city. Mountain by mountain. Street by street. The swarm learned something no other species had ever taught it. Humans did not break when overwhelmed. They escalated. Above Earth, the swarm hesitated. That pause lasted less than a second. It was enough. Human fleets converged. Every remaining weapon fired. The swarm shattered. Its hive signal fractured, then collapsed into silence. Across the galaxy, sensors went dark. The impossible had happened. The swarm retreated. In the high chamber, Vraka stared at the data. They defended their home world, he whispered. Against extinction. Ilex glowed dimly. No, the seer mind corrected. They demonstrated why they are dangerous. On Luna, Ward finally exhaled. The war was not over. But the galaxy was no longer laughing. Earth had spoken. And the stars were listening. The retreat of the Scarith swarm did not bring relief. It brought fear. Across the galaxy, species who had survived by hiding behind treaties and tradition began to understand something terrible. The swarm had been beaten before. Slowed. Redirected. But never repelled. And never by a civilization that had not even reached full interstellar maturity. The high chamber of the Galactic Concord convened under emergency protocols older than most member species. Gravity dimmed. Light softened. The very architecture seemed to brace itself. At the center hovered a single image. Earth. Scarred. Smoking. Alive. They weaponized their own star, hissed Counselor Vraka, his voice trembling between outrage and awe. They turned an inhabited system into a death trap. They sacrificed thousands of ships without hesitation, another delegate said. No consensus votes. No ritual command structures. They ignored containment law, shouted a crystalline being. They destabilized stellar bodies. That is forbidden. Ilex, the seer mind, spoke last. And yet, it said softly, they still exist. While 3 of our core worlds do not. Silence fell like a blade. The laws of the Concord, unchanged for eons, had failed. Humanity had not followed them. Humanity had won. On Luna, Admiral Elena Ward stood before a very different council. Human leaders argued loudly. Accusations flew. Old wounds reopened. You nearly destroyed the planet. We had no choice. You acted without global authorization. Ward waited. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, but iron hard. We survived, she said. That's the authorization. She gestured to a projection of the galaxy. The swarm is wounded, not dead. And now it knows something. The room quieted. It knows we are a threat, Ward continued. Which means every other power in the galaxy is reassessing us too. A general frowned. You think the Concord is afraid of us? Ward met his eyes. No, she said. I think they're afraid of losing control. The Concord's response came swiftly. A formal communique reached Earth, wrapped in diplomatic language sharp enough to cut steel. Mandate of containment. Earth reclassified. Potential galactic disruptor. Human military operations to be restricted. Ward laughed when she read it. A tired, humorless sound. They want to leash us, she said. After asking us to save them. Human leaders debated retaliation. Ward proposed something worse. We don't fight them, she said. We change the rules. Human diplomats arrived at the Concord not as petitioners, but as equals. Their ships were still scarred from Sol. Their escorts were minimal. That scared the aliens more than a fleet would have. Ward stood in the high chamber once again, surrounded by beings who had once dismissed her entire species. You fear us, she said plainly. I understand. We fear ourselves too. Murmurs rippled. But fear doesn't change reality, she continued. The swarm is still out there. It will return. And when it does, your laws will get you killed. A counselor snapped, You propose anarchy. Ward shook her head. I propose adaptation, she said. The thing you punished us for doing. Ilex floated closer. What do humans want? It asked. Ward didn't hesitate. A seat, she said. And authority to act when hesitation means extinction. The chamber erupted. You are too young. You are too violent. You are unpredictable. Ward let them shout. Then she said the sentence that froze the galaxy. Then stop pretending predictability saves lives. Before the debate could continue, alarms screamed through the high chamber. A new signal. Not the swarm. Something worse. The swarm had split. Fragments of the hive were attacking across dozens of sectors simultaneously, avoiding human space entirely. They were learning. They're isolating you, Vraka whispered. Avoiding your influence. Ward smiled grimly. Smart, she said. But incomplete. Human intelligence had been tracking something the Concorde had missed. The swarm wasn't just attacking worlds. It was hunting infrastructure. Gateways, relays, supply nexuses, the backbone of galactic civilization. If those fall, a Concorde strategist whispered, the galaxy collapses into isolated systems. Ward nodded. And isolated systems die alone. She turned back to the council. You can restrict us, she said. You can fear us, or you can let us do what we do best. And what is that? Alex asked. Ward's voice was quiet. Fight the impossible. The Concorde voted. Not unanimously, not proudly, but desperately. For the first time in its history, the Concorde amended its sacred laws. Emergency clause, human operational autonomy granted. Across the chamber, some aliens recoiled as if reality itself had cracked. Vraka slumped. We have unleashed something, he murmured. Ilix replied. No. We acknowledged what was already there. Human fleets did not wait. They launched operations across contested space, striking swarm fragments with ruthless efficiency. Where Concorde forces defended, humans counterattacked. Where aliens evacuated, humans held ground. They set traps using abandoned stations. They lured the swarm into nebulae seeded with electromagnetic chaos. They even allowed entire colonies to fall, only to detonate the swarm deep inside captured worlds. Alien observers were horrified. Human commanders were clinical. We mourn later, they said. We win first. Then came the message. Not from the swarm. From a species the Concorde thought extinct. A single transmission, ancient and cracked, broadcast from beyond known space. We hid from them. You fought them. Teach us how. Ward listened to the playback in silence. Humanity was no longer alone. They were becoming something else. A standard. A threat. A hope. The galaxy was changing its laws. And humans were the reason. The first thing humanity did with command authority was break the map. Concorde battle charts had always been neat. Borders were clean. Threat zones were colored and contained. Human strategists erased them. They replaced borders with flows. Supply lines. Migration routes. Information pathways. Fear vectors. This isn't a territorial war, Admiral Elena Ward told the assembled commanders of 37 species. It's an ecosystem collapse. The alien leaders watched in stunned silence as human analysts layered data at impossible speed. The swarm doesn't conquer, Ward continued. It harvests stability. It destroys anything that lets civilizations recover. A reptilian warlord growled, then where do we strike? Ward pointed, not at swarm space but at empty darkness beyond the rim. At what's feeding it, she said. The truth humans uncovered was simple. And terrifying. The Scarth swarm was not self-sustaining. It fed on civilizational collapse, on the energy, matter, and data released when complex societies fell apart. The Concorde, with its rigid laws and fragile interdependence, had unknowingly been farming itself for millions of years. Every fallen world strengthened the swarm. Every slow, civilized retreat nourished it. That's impossible, Vraka whispered. We've studied them for ages. Humans had one brutal advantage. They assumed nothing was sacred. Humanity reorganized the galaxy's defenses in weeks, what had taken the Concorde centuries to debate. They created firebreak sectors, regions deliberately stripped of infrastructure to starve the swarm. They authorized controlled evacuations followed by scorched space tactics. They centralized command under a rotating human-led war council, not to dominate, but to decide fast. Alien commanders struggled. You're asking us to abandon worlds, one pleaded. Ward did not soften her answer. Yes, she said. So others can live. Some species refused. They died first. The swarm reacted. For the first time since its emergence, it launched a focused assault on a single command structure. Human command. Entire star systems went dark as the swarm pushed toward Sol again, not in brute force but in precision. It had learned. Human counterintelligence anticipated this. They let the swarm think it was winning. Fake panic flooded the networks. Human fleets appeared disorganized. Supply routes seemed exposed. The swarm committed, and fell into the trap. The battle of black silence did not happen near a star. It happened in the void between. A region deliberately emptied of matter, saturated with quantum noise, and rigged with human technology no alien engineer would ever approve. As swarm fleets poured in, space itself became unstable. Human ships didn't fire first. They waited. Then Ward gave the order. Collapse the silence. Reality bent. Artificial gravity wells tore through the swarm's formations. Time-dilated kill zones slowed regeneration to uselessness. Human vessels appeared and vanished, striking neural hubs with surgical brutality. The swarm adapted, too late. It had never fought an enemy willing to rewrite physics mid-battle. When it tried to retreat, there was nowhere to go. The void consumed it. Across the galaxy, something unprecedented happened. The swarm's hive signal stuttered. Fragments began acting independently. Inefficiently. Desperately. "It's losing cohesion," Ilix whispered. "We've never seen this." Ward stared at the data. "We didn't beat it," she said. "We starved it." The surviving swarm did something unthinkable. It asked for terms. The transmission reached every known species at once. Cease aggression. Environment unstable. Request. Coexistence parameters. Panic erupted. Some species demanded immediate acceptance. "We can't fight forever." Others wanted extermination. Ward listened to all of it. Then she responded. "Coexistence requires rules," she said calmly. "You don't follow them." "We can learn," the swarm replied. Ward's eyes hardened. "So can we," she said. "That's why this ends now." Human fleets mobilized across every front. Not to attack but to contain. They sealed the swarm into regions designed to limit collapse energy. They prevented it from feeding, forcing it into dormancy. It screamed, not in pain but in confusion. The galaxy watched in awe. Humanity had not destroyed an ancient cosmic predator. They had caged it. The aftermath was quiet. Too quiet. Civilizations rebuilt under human-designed resilience protocols. Redundancies replaced efficiency. Flexibility replaced tradition. The Concord still existed, but it was no longer in charge. A new term entered galactic language. Human standard. Vraka stood beside Ward on a rebuilt Concord balcony. "You were underestimated," he said. Ward shook her head. "No," she replied. "We were accurately judged." Vraka frowned. "How so?" Ward looked out at the stars. "They saw what we were," she said. "They just didn't understand what that meant." Far beyond known space, something ancient stirred. Not the swarm. Something that had watched it fail. And learned. Human sensors detected the anomaly first. Ward read the report and smiled faintly. "Good," she said. "Send the greeting." The signal did not come through normal space. It arrived sideways. Human sensors registered it as a pressure in probability, a distortion in causality itself. Concord instruments failed to even name it. But human systems, patched together from stolen theories, half-proven math, and reckless experimentation, noticed immediately. Designation appeared on Admiral Ward's display. Contact, non-local intelligence. She exhaled slowly. "So," she murmured. "You finally looked our way." The entity did not have a shape. When it spoke, it borrowed symbols from every species at once, voices layered over voices, meaning compressing into understanding. "You contain the swarm. You alter systemic outcomes." This was not permitted. Concord delegates froze in terror. Ilix dimmed, its light flickering. This is an overseer," the seer mind whispered. "A curator species. They regulate galactic evolution." Ward tilted her head. "Regulate," she repeated. "Or control?" The overseer paused. That pause shook stars. For billions of years, the overseers had guided the galaxy. They culled aggressive species. Encouraged stable ones. Allowed predators like the swarm to exist as balance mechanisms. Reset buttons when civilizations grew too rigid. War was not evil. Change was. "You were never meant to survive," the overseer declared. "Your trajectory was unstable." Ward folded her hands behind her back. "Funny," she said. "That's what our own history books say about us too." The overseer issued its decree to the Concord. "Humanity is a disruption vector. Proposal, soft extinction. Integrate remnants into stable cultures." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Vraka collapsed to his knees. Ilix turned toward Ward, voice shaking. I cannot oppose them. They predate us." Ward didn't move. "Then step aside," she said quietly. Human fleets began to reposition. Not in panic. In preparation. The overseer noticed. "Resistance is futile. You are finite." Ward activated an open broadcast. "Every species, every system. Listen carefully," she said. "This is the part of history where things usually end." Her face filled the stars. "We were called unstable," she continued. "Violent. Unfit for the galaxy." She smiled faintly. "You were right. Human ships powered weapons that bent spacetime. Planetary defenses synchronized across light years. AI minds, once feared even by humans, were unleashed under human command. The Overseer reacted for the first time. This is not natural progression. Ward's voice hardened. No, she said. It's survival. The Overseer struck first. Stars dimmed. Fleets vanished, not destroyed but removed, erased from causality. Concord forces broke instantly. Human formations did not. They fractured, decentralized, and continued fighting without command. Because humans had prepared for this too. Redundant leadership. Independent doctrine. Chaos tolerance. You could not decapitate a species that had learned to function while bleeding. Human scientists did what no other species dared. They studied the Overseer during combat. They learned its limitations. It could edit reality, but only where probability was stable. So humans destabilized everything. They detonated uncertainty. Randomized tactics. Weaponized unpredictability. Introduced deliberate errors that cascaded into chaos. The Overseer faltered. For the first time in its existence, outcomes multiplied beyond control. You are becoming a threat. Ward answered calmly. We've always been one. Then humanity revealed its final safeguard. The Apex Clause. A protocol buried deep in human governance, written after first contact with the swarm. It stated a single principle. If an external intelligence attempts to dictate humanity's extinction, humanity will respond as a unified species, without restraint. The clause activated automatically. Every human polity dissolved into one command structure. No borders. No vetoes. Just purpose. The counterstrike was not an attack. It was a refusal. Human engineers severed the Overseer's influence zones. They collapsed probability anchors. They forced the Overseer to exist in linear time. Trap. Finite. The Overseer screamed, not in pain but in shock. This has never happened. Ward stood as the entity's presence weakened. Then write it down, she said. Because we don't plan to be the last. When it was over, the Overseer withdrew, damaged, diminished, no longer absolute. The galaxy was silent. Ilix finally spoke. You challenged the architects. Ward looked tired. We've been challenging God since we invented them. In the aftermath, the Concord passed a final amendment. Not out of fear. Out of recognition. Humanity classified, Apex Adaptive Species. Role, Galactic Failsafe. Vraka approached Ward one last time. What happens now? He asked. Ward gazed into the stars. Now, she said, we make sure no one ever laughs at survival again. Far away in the dark beyond dark, something else was listening. And unlike the Overseer, was afraid. The galaxy did not celebrate. It exhaled. After the Overseer withdrew, stars seemed brighter, not because they had changed, but because fear no longer pressed against every thought. For the first time in millions of years, the future was not curated, culled, or corrected. It was unknown. And that terrified everyone. Except humans. The Galactic Concord convened one final time in the High Chamber. Its halls had been rebuilt, widened to accommodate species long excluded, and reinforced with human-designed redundancies. Nothing essential relied on a single system anymore. That was the new rule. At the center of the chamber stood Admiral Elena Ward, not elevated, not enthroned. Just standing. Representatives from 100 species watched her with expressions ranging from reverence to unease. Ilix spoke first. The Overseers have retreated beyond observable space, the seer mind said. The swarm remains contained. Galactic collapse probability has fallen to historic lows. Pause. And yet, Ilix continued, we now face a different question. Every eye turned to Ward. What does humanity want? The chamber held its breath. Ward did not answer immediately. She activated a projection, not of fleets or battles but of Earth. A small blue world. Scars visible from orbit. Cities glowing softly. Oceans restless. Alive. We were underestimated, she said. Not because we were weak, but because we were unfinished. Murmurs rippled. We never believed the universe owed us survival, Ward continued. Every day on our world was earned. Sometimes stolen. Sometimes lost. She looked at the assembled species. You built a galaxy designed to preserve what already worked, she said. We came from a world that broke constantly. A faint smile. That made us flexible. Vraka stepped forward, his once arrogant posture now heavy with humility. You could rule us, he said. No force could stop you. The words echoed. Ward nodded slowly. Yes, she said. We could. The tension became unbearable. Then she shook her head. But that's not why you asked us for help, she said. And it's not why we answered. She raised her hand and the projection changed. It showed human losses. Ships destroyed. Cities damaged. Names scrolling endlessly. We paid a price, Ward said quietly. We know what supremacy costs. Silence fell like snow. Humanity's proposal was simple and radical. No empire. No throne. No permanent control. Instead, humanity would serve as the last line. When diplomacy failed. When laws broke. When predators rose. When gods returned. Humans would stand where no one else could. Not rulers. Failsafes. The Concord voted. This time unanimously. A new charter was written, shorter than all the rest combined. Humanity designated, guardian species. Authority, emergency only. Obligation, defense of galactic continuity. The galaxy did not kneel. It entrusted. Years passed. Then decades. Human fleets became rare sights, appearing only when disaster loomed. They did not occupy worlds. They trained others, shared resilience doctrines, taught species how to decentralize, adapt, and survive loss. Some alien cultures resisted. They learned the hard way. Some embraced the change. They flourished. And slowly, quietly, the galaxy became harder to break. Far beyond the rim, the thing that had been listening finally moved. Not an overseer. Not a swarm. Something older. It watched human space carefully. Calculated. Waited. Then it turned away. The risk was too high. On Earth, life continued. Messy. Loud. Argumentative. Beautiful. Children still fought. Nations still disagreed. Humans were still imperfect. They always would be. That was the point. Admiral Ward, older now, stood on a cliff overlooking a restless sea. A young officer stood beside her. Do you think they'll ever stop being afraid of us? The officer asked. Ward considered the horizon. No, she said. And they shouldn't. She smiled faintly. Fear keeps you honest. High above, a Concord memorial drifted in orbit. Inscribed in 100 languages was a single sentence, now taught in every star system. The galaxy laughed at Earth. Until humans became the last hope of every species. And among the stars, when new civilizations rose and asked what humanity was, the answer was never simple. They were not the strongest. They were not the oldest. They were not the wisest. They were the ones who refused to end. And when the universe finally learned that lesson, stopped laughing.